Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So we're not going to be doing our October presidential election prediction, at least the first one this month, until October 5th. It'll be 1 month out of the election that way, but we have to talk about the Senate today because if Donald Trump wins, he's going to need Congress to get certain things done, and the only way to really get things done is with a Republican Congress, a Republican House, Republican Senate. Both chambers will be doing the House prediction as well pretty shortly. But in terms of the Senate, do Republicans have a solid shot at retaking the chamber? Well, it's a very favorable map, and the answer does tend to be yes. But still, we have to fill the map out, and we're going to see how many seats can you really get, because if they get 51, it's like, yeah, you technically got it, but you kind of want to have that rhino-proof majority so you don't have to rely on, Collins and Murkowski for certain things. So we'll fill this map out and see where things stand today, but I do want to, tell you guys about Home Title Lock, which is a very important product that I encourage people to look into, because you have this, phenomenon of house theft from certain criminal individuals. And I interviewed their CEO. And before we do the Senate prediction, I'd recommend you guys watch the interview. And when that's over, we will be doing the prediction. So here we go. Okay, everyone. So I'm here with Arthur Fitzenmeyer. He is a former FBI special agent, and he is the senior advisor of Home Title Lock. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. In terms of your background, it seems like you're very skilled in local law enforcement. And we've seen a lot of these, organized crime matters and such rise across the nation. And it seems as if there's been a major story that's happened in Raleigh, North Carolina, where a homeowner has been facing an alarming case of fraud because a stranger somehow illegally claimed ownership of his multi-million-dollar property. And he proved the claim to be false, but was told that there's nothing that the county was able to do without costly legal action. So how could this happen? And what does it really mean for homeowners everywhere?
Well, thank you for the introduction, by the way. Something like this, I've been doing this with this company for 7 years, and I have a long background in law enforcement at many levels, federal and local. The situation that you're talking about is not that unusual. Home Title Lock is in the business of watching titles for everyone. So when you own a property, the owner of record is the deed or the title to the property. That tells you who the owner is. In this day and age, somebody can go in and digitally, or even go into the various county recorder's offices and get a copy of that, either online or pay $1 for it. And then with AI and the ability to Photoshop these things, they can change the name on that document from your name to their name, probably a false name. And at that point, they file it. Now, the county has to record these documents if they're fully filled out. They can't challenge it. So if somebody walks in with a document for this person's house, for instance, they can't challenge it. They have to file it. And then whoever is the new owner, the false owner, can use the equity in that property to either get loans or to sell it. Because if you go look at the local files in the county recorder's office, this is the new owner, and a transaction like that could possibly be executed without a lot of difficulty. The county recorder's office has no legal jurisdiction here, and so once this is recorded and once the first loan is made, then there's a lot of difficulty. You can't just put that back in your name. You have to go to court. So, and this sounds like this gentleman, some transaction took place and the county said, look, we can't just put it back in your name. You have to go hire an attorney, and the attorney has to go to court because whoever the lender was, they're going to want their money back, and they're going to take you to court and ask the court to foreclose on the property so they can get their money. They don't want the house. They just want the money back on this loan because you haven't paid it because you didn't make it. I mean, it's complicated, but it's scary as well. I mean, once this loan is made, 120 days or so, they're going to knock on your door and say, you haven't made mortgage payments. We want our money back or our mortgage payments. And that's the mess that it sounds like this guy's in. And when you go to the county recorder's office, they'll say, we can't give you any advice. You have to go to the district attorney. And the district attorney is probably going to say, well, what you probably need to do is get an attorney. Now, real estate law is pretty complicated. An attorney in real estate law is going to charge you $800 an hour. And these things, because they're civil matters, take a long time in local court. And it's not unusual for bills for the owner, the real owner, who has really done nothing wrong except failing to pay attention to his title, could be $40,000, $50,000. I've had a case in the past that I've worked on. The guy spent so much money getting the house that he owned back in his name, he had to sell it to pay the bills. I mean, it gets that crazy. So once you get to that, you're in a legal, financial, and emotional nightmare that really can last for years. The answer is, quite frankly, is what Home Title Lock does. Now, I've been with the company for 7 years. As far as I'm concerned, we're, the founders of this whole area that we're in. And if you want to stop this, you've got to find out about it before that first loan is negotiated. And if you don't, then you're in trouble. Home Title Lock, we have very powerful proprietary software. We watch the titles for all of our subscribers in a national database. We don't have to run around to the various recorders' offices. It's in a national database. And our software will notify our subscriber if that title is disturbed. And the email to the subscriber will say, there's something wrong with your title, call us right away. We'll bring up, when you call, and our customer service, we've been doing this for a lot. They're really good at what they do. I call them platinum level customer service. They'll look at the documents for you and they'll pull up the changes and show them to you. Now, if you don't recognize them, you're in trouble. And that's why we're going to get you out of that trouble. Sometimes people forget they had a home equity loan or something like that, and that triggers the software to, alert you this has been a problem. And if that alert is not familiar to you, then we start working with you. We have a restoration team that'll begin working with you right then and there to make sure we solve the problem that you're looking at and help you get that title back in your name as quickly as possible and prevent that loan from being negotiated. And that's the key right there. But once that money's out the door, somebody's got it and they're on a someplace with wide beaches and those drinks with little umbrellas in them and you're off to the courthouse, we stop that. We don't let it get started. And that's the real key here. So the answer is, if you sign up for Home Title Lock, we're going to watch that title for you. People don't realize that most homeowners, 85% of their net worth is the equity in their home. And in this day and age, it may be more. And I live in California. It's the equity is huge. And once you start down that trail, you're going to be in really big trouble. So we stop it before it gets started, and we will see it through with you to the end. It's not difficult if you know what you're doing. And if you went to, I heard Ronald Reagan, but he said the 10 scariest words in the English language are, we're from the government, we're here to help. And you would be better off to be helped by Home Title Lock. We're the company that makes it happen for you. And it's 4 pennies a day. Look, for a year's coverage, it's $200. And I like to say to people, look, if you skip that drive-through designer coffee once a week, at the end of the year, you'd have more than enough money to have paid for Home Title Lock coverage. Your title would be, watched by us for you 24/7. You sleep better at night. And by the way, at the end of the year, you could probably pay for Home Title Lock and buy a tank of gas. I live in California, half a tank of gas. Then you'd be able to, sleep well at night and understand that the most important asset in your life, something that you may use later on for retirement or some kind of assisted living, that would be gone we're going to watch it and make sure when you need it or you want to leave it to your kids, it'll be there. Home Title Lock will watch it and be your little angel on your shoulder. Would you take a paper bag full of $100 bills and put them out on the curb? Of course not. But that's what you're doing. People can drive by and like your house, go online, find out everything they need to know about your house, change the documents so that they're the new owner. It's really that simple. And the big difference is why it doesn't happen, and it's a mushrooming epidemic, quite frankly. But you've got to be willing to commit 4 or 5 felonies before breakfast if you want to steal somebody. So, wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy, all those things. And so, that's why the crooks do it. I mean, as a friend of mine told me, why would people go steal the money from your house? And he said, that's why bank robbers go to banks. Willie Sutton once said, he was a famous bank robber back in the 30s. And when he was arrested, they asked him why he robbed banks. He says, that's where the money is. And that's why home thieves go after your house. That's where the money is. It's easy money and it's big money. So they will gladly take a chance. And you see, they don't go near the house. You don't know who they are. They don't have to really leave their house in order to steal the money from your equity in your home. It's something that we think about every day. And we, just go to Google and Google home title theft, and you're going to see, I would assume, page after page of horror stories like your viewer there in Raleigh. I'm sure he's thinking, boy, for $200 a year, I should have jumped in on that a long time ago.
Absolutely. And I mean, it is an epidemic that it seems. I mean, you have people,
Yep.
they're stealing houses. They've never been to the house, as you say, they've never seen the house. And it does happen like per year. Would you say it's like on the rise? And by how many cases of these do you deal with? Because obviously it seems like a good investment if this is something that is a recurring theme, and people are losing millions, if not even billions combined worth of their own property every single year because it's not protected.
We see county recorder's offices all the time posting right on their front page that they have seen a very large surge in the home title fraud cases, and then they start looking to offer the alert system. Now, their alert system ends with them when your alert is issued. After that, you're on your own. And if you have Home Title Lock, our alert system not only tells you when there's a problem, but we show you the problem, and then we take that problem and work with you to resolve it in your favor. And this is happening on an ever expanding basis. It's, I think it might have been CoreLogic. They had did some work because it's hard to define, but they said that, title fraud losses in I think it was 2023, about $350 million. And I would contend that that's probably the tip of the iceberg, quite frankly, in title fraud, because the losses are so large. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars. So people need to be responsible for their own assets. But one of the things they need to do is make sure that they know what their biggest asset is doing, every minute of the day. And at Home Title Lock, we'll do that for you. You don't have to get down to the county recorder's office once a week and look at your title. We can do it for you and let you know if there's a problem. And that's the key. And if there's that peace of mind is almost invaluable as far as I'm concerned. If you're a homeowner and you want to secure your future, retirement and inheritance to your family, it's something that you really should take a look at. If I were your viewers right now, I would go to HometitleLock.com and use the coupon code, I believe, for you is PROTECT, and they'll get 30 days free. And when you do that, you'll also get a copy of your title and a history of your title. Those are documents you should probably have around the house anyway. So if you go to HometitleLock.com and sign up right now, you'll be able to get 30 days free coverage, and it'll give you an idea of what it takes, to secure the most important asset in your life.
Yeah, it does seem as if, it's something that people should look into, especially if this is even if it's a far less than 1% risk, it still happens quite often. It's something that, is, as you say, it's relatively inexpensive in the long run. It's a investment that can really pay off. And it seems as if it's something that, if people out there in the audience have some sort of, home that they would like to protect and make sure that there's no, chance of their house getting stolen randomly overnight by some, criminal who happens to just want to, steal that, property, steal the equity, the value. HomeTitleLock.com, is that correct?
Yes.
And you said the
believe me, it's
code is
55 cents a day. If you take it for, it's 55 cents a day. You can't even buy a newspaper for 55 cents anymore. It's the best money you'll ever spend. And it's smart to do it. That's just financially wise to cover your most important asset like that. So yes, HomeTitleLock.com right now if you're smart.
And you said the coupon code for the 30 free days is
the word protect.
Protect, and that's because it's going to protect the title. And I encourage people to go check it out. So, anyways, Art Fitzenmeyer, I really appreciate you for coming on and sharing this with my viewers.
Nice to be here. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yep, you too. All right, guys, now officially back to the video. We're going to be filling out this map. We're going to start off with the safe Republican seats. We're going to be filling out North Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, both Nebraskas. One of those could be interesting because of the fact you have this independent candidate that's polling well. They're not running a Democrat. I still believe that Deb Fischer is going to end up holding on by just over 10 points there. You got Missouri, Tennessee, Indiana, Mississippi, and the state of West Virginia, which is a flip, by the way. All of those go in the safe Republican column, so they have a very high floor with 48 Senate seats guaranteed to go in their column, likely by 10 percentage points or more. Now for the Democrats, we'll fill out California, Washington, Hawaii. We will fill out Maryland. I know Larry Hogan's polling close. I still think because of the presidential year in the total environment, it's not going to be easy for him to win a state that Kamala Harris is going to win by, close to 30 points or so. Also, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Vermont, and New York State will be in this column. We'll also put Minnesota in this column. Amy Klobuchar, she's not going to win by much over 10, but I do believe that she is going to win by 10 or more, but it's going to be by a significantly narrower margin than her 30-point win or whatever back in 2018. And then Maine, Angus King, he is an independent, technically caucuses with the Democrats. He probably is going to hold on up there. He's relatively popular in Maine. So we now have to move on to the likely Republican states. We're going to be starting off with the state of Florida, where the polls will have it close, but the polls, they really are underestimating the Republican strength in the state of Florida. You look at the registration data, and it's insane. Republicans, they've netted 1.2 million since that 2020 election, and that number increases every single week, it seems. And Rick Scott, he usually wins elections by the skin of his teeth, but I think he's going to win by close to 10, and I actually think Trump is going to outrun him and possibly win by over 10 points in the state of Florida, which would be absolutely huge. But again, Florida's kind of in a vacuum. Just because Trump wins it big doesn't mean that he's, going to be winning states like Wisconsin. And even if he underperforms expectations and only wins it by 6, it doesn't mean that he's completely screwed. So there's a lot of moving parts to Florida, but it does seem as if Trump is poised to see massive gains in the Sunshine State down there. Now, as for Texas, the polls are tightening. Ted Cruz and Colin Allred. Doesn't seem like Democrats really have any hope for Kamala Harris's chances in Texas, but they've been putting a lot into the Senate You look at the polling here still, Ted Cruz leads by 5 percentage points. It's narrowing. I still think he's going to win by 5. I think when it comes down to Texas, there's certain suburbs that you have these, ex-Republican type of people that still vote red down ballot. And even though Cruz is polarizing, he'll win enough of those voters and he'll do well in the Rio Grande Valley. Colin Allred, not really the best fit for there. Ted Cruz hasn't really done that well in history there, but it has moved significantly to the right, and Donald Trump will do very well there. Ted Cruz is going to do well there. Overall, I think he wins by just around 5 points, maybe a hair above. It could be a hair below, but he's probably not losing the seat. We'll see what the final margin is in the final prediction that we make next month. But there's another state, and it's honestly tempting to move it to safe just because of the fact that John Tester's imploding in real time, and we see that. Tim Sheehy, great candidate, well-funded, and he's poised to go out there and win the state by close to 10. A lot of Democrats hope they would hold on to the state of Montana, but they're more confident now in Texas than Montana. They're even putting money in Florida. They're not winning either of these 3 states, by the way, but Montana especially, Donald Trump on the ballot. None of these people like, Sherrod Brown, John Tester, they have ever faced a challenge with Donald Trump on the ballot in one of these states. They were barely getting by in 2012 against weak candidates when Romney was at the top of the ticket, and he wasn't doing as well as Trump typically does in these states. But Tim Sheehy already polling at 50%, already polling ahead by a likely margin. He may win this thing by double digits. It's too early to tell, but we'll put it as likely Republican for right now. So that's it for the likely Republican seats, and already, regardless of who wins the presidency, Republicans are at 51. Now, keep in mind, if you see 50-50 in the Senate, the tie would go to whoever is currently the vice president. So it's very likely that if Donald Trump won, but somehow you only had 50 seats in the Senate, yes, technically Republicans would hold the Senate. They wouldn't be able to get much done compared to if they had more, and vice versa. If Harris wins and it's 50-50, Tim Walz would be the tie-breaking vote. But it doesn't seem like that's likely to happen. So we'll move on to the lean, or I guess you should say likely Democrat seats here. We have Virginia, which Donald Trump is polling extraordinarily well in some of these polls in Virginia, but the raw data is more impressive so far. A lot of these people that are like these early vote, model geniuses that have gotten 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, like correct in Virginia down to a decimal, they're showing the state moving to the right by around 5 points, and these lower propensity voters are really engaged, and they typically are leaning more Republican per the modeling, which is huge. And if that holds up in Virginia, it's very likely it does translate into some other states as well. Now, there is credit to be given to the Virginia GOP for their competency, but North Carolina, for example, similarly competent. And if you see Virginia moving to the right, North Carolina probably isn't flipping to Kamala Harris. But one thing I will say is that in terms of the Senate race there, Hung Cao, he's kind of polling underwater. He's polling behind Trump. If Donald Trump has a good night, could he make things closer? Well, it's possible, but he's kind of polling behind. So for right now, we'll keep it as like a 5 to 6 point win for Tim Kaine. He is the incumbent. Might be a little harder to knock him off. Similar thing in New Mexico here, where you have the senator up for re-election in Martin Heinrich, and he's facing Nella Dominici, who has a lot of name recognition in terms of the last name, as Pete Dominici was an electoral juggernaut in New Mexico for a very long time. But still, I think it's once again going to be, close to a 5 to 6 point victory for the incumbent Martin Heinrich in New Mexico. It doesn't seem like the presidential race is getting closer, and it doesn't seem like, Dominici's making a ridiculous amount of waves right now to really, turn some heads over to that race in New Mexico. So there's 6 seats remaining, and there's only one seat that we're going to be putting in the lean Republican column, and that is Ohio. Bernie Moreno, the odds are hitting. He's leading some polls finally in the state of Ohio. He's likely going to win. Donald Trump at the top of the ticket in Ohio. You talk about the state of Ohio. This is a state that voted for Trump by 8 points twice, and given trends and certain things, he's probably going to win it by, I would even say, 10 or more this cycle. And if that's the case, I can't see Moreno trailing him by around, 6 points or more, especially because what fuels Donald Trump's victories in the Rust Belt are these lower propensity voters who will, go to the polls and check the box for Donald Trump and then vote Republican down ballot when Trump is on the ballot. You even saw it in the primary where the polls were showing Matt Dolan would win, or at least it would be a razor-thin election in the Ohio Senate primary, and Trump already dropped out, but he was still on the ballot, and he rallied for Moreno, and he went out there and he won his primary big, and then Moreno won by like 20 points. It was ridiculous out of nowhere and outran all the polling. And I think you're going to see a similar phenomenon, not just in Ohio, but also in some of these other Rust Belt states if Trump has a good night. Some of these are what you could call a BOGO, a buy one, get one free, in terms of the presidency and the Senate race, depending on the margins for sure, depending on the state. But Ohio, absolutely, you could see going to Donald Trump by 10, which I think he will, and I think Moreno's going to possibly win it by 2 to 4. So you can put that in the lean Republican column. Sherrod Brown, one of the most liberal senators of the past 18 years, he's finally facing a serious challenge. That's not great for him, all things considered. So we will be going to the lean Democrat seats, and I only really have one, and I really hope this changes, but Arizona, where you have Kari Lake. She's running up against Ruben Gallego, but Gallego, he's polling ridiculously ahead. He's up by 13 in some of these polls. And by the way, I just want to say that it's very unlikely that Ruben Gallego is going to win by double digits, let alone by, 7.6. But the one thing I will say is the fact that he's polling above 50% is kind of a warning sign. Now, Donald Trump in the state of Arizona, he's polling at 49.2. So there are these Trump Gallego voters. I don't know exactly who they are other than, Hispanic voters, which Lake does, do well compared to these other past Republicans with him. But Gallego, he's just flooding the airwaves. He's trying to recreate his image. He's got high name rack. And there's baggage that he's got, but he's able to sweep it up. He's trying to portray himself as this sensible moderate, and I can't believe that people are just eating it up. But I think it's going to be around a 2-point race, and if Trump has a good enough night, yeah, it's possible Kari Lake could be pulled over. We'll have to see. And then you have Nevada, where you have Jackie Rosen. She leads by close to 9. I don't think that's going to hold either. I think it's going to be closer at the end of the day, especially because Nevada, do they really split tickets that often there? Not by that margin. Arizona's known for ticket splitting, but Nevada not as much. And I don't think Sam Brown is going to go out there and win that race, but I do think it's going to be relatively close. And I think Trump narrowly wins Nevada. I think Jackie Rosen wins by around 1 to 2. Gallego probably wins by around 2 to 3. So in terms of the tilt states, that's the first tilt state off the board. The battleground that will be decided by under 2 will be going over to the Rust Belt, which, all three of these, you could make the case they could be BOGO states. If Donald Trump wins all three, Republicans could end up with 55 Senate seats. If Donald Trump loses all three of the Rust Belt states, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but still there's a chance of an overperformance in a state like Michigan, just given certain things like down ballot lag, the low propensity Trump voters getting out to vote for Trump and then, voting Republican down ballot, and a lot of those voters otherwise wouldn't vote. And if they would vote, maybe they wouldn't vote that way in these Senate races. But we'll start off with the state of Pennsylvania, which, again, Donald Trump himself is poised to win right now as things stand today in my presidential prediction, probably by around 1 to 2 points. And Dave McCormick is really impressing a lot of people. He's doing much better than I anticipated. And in a lot of these polls, he's only, running behind by 1 to 2 points, and the gap isn't even fully closed yet. And Casey, being Bob Casey, this strong incumbent that we even thought was unbeatable, he's polling below 50%. He's polling below Gallego in Arizona. He's polling below Jackie Rosen in Nevada. I think that you're going to see McCormick do better than Donald Trump in the Philadelphia Cowler counties and possibly Allegheny County. And I think McCormick is going to, run relatively and surprisingly in line with Trump in a lot of these, rural areas and places like Nepaw. Bob Casey, he's been nowhere to be found, and he's kind of coasting on his last name, but he's finally facing accountability. I really believe McCormick, you can make a case. If Trump wins Pennsylvania, especially by one, I think McCormick in a very narrow election victory, yes, it can be done out of the state of Pennsylvania. Now, as for Michigan, I think that this is a state that you can make a case could be a very close state at the presidential level either way. But you talk about the down ballot effects you'll see. Alyssa Slotkin, she's well known in Oakland County, Livingston, Ingham, that area, although Mike Rogers also used to represent that district. But Mike Rogers is a better fit for like West Michigan than Trump. Some of these people that, split their tickets, they're going to be voting Republican down ballot, and you'll possibly see an overperformance. Meanwhile, I don't see the appeal that Slotkin really brings to places like, Macomb County with a lot of those lower propensity Trump voters that, maybe Gary Peters made a little bit of, inroads here and there and outran Joe Biden with, but still Peters underperformed statewide. I don't see Slotkin's appeal being that wide as things stand today. She also has a very big problem with the Muslim vote, as Kamala Harris does, due to her staunch, Israel support. And I think that that's going to potentially cost her some votes in places like Wayne County. Overall, I think Michigan, I could easily see Mike Rogers pull off the upset. Now, Wisconsin, this is tougher. For sure, I think you can make the case Eric Hovde could win, but Tammy Baldwin, she, does have this bizarre appeal in the driftless area, even among some Trump voters that'll split her tickets. I think in eastern Wisconsin, like the Bow and the Wow counties, you could see, depending on the county, Hovde outrun Trump, maybe even a tad in Dane. By how much, I don't know. But then in the rest of the state, I really feel like he will underperform a little bit. Is it going to be enough? I don't see him ridiculously overperforming in WOW, kind of how, Ron Johnson did in 2016. I genuinely believe that you will see this race as things stand today. It's going to be close, possibly recount territory. But, I probably will say that Baldwin's going to hold on, but she's definitely in a tough fight. So, guys, this is the current map as it stands today. Republicans with 54 Senate seats, Democrats with 46 Senate seats. Donald Trump, if he's able to go out there and win this presidential election, which he is favored to do so, he's going to have a sizable majority in the Senate. And possibly you could even make a case for expanding the House majority, depending on what happens in certain parts of New York and California as well. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.